Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning into today's broadcast. It's the Monday, June 1st, 2026 episode of the Marco DeRay Show, the only show where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. What better way to start off the month of June than by letting everybody know how angry I am with our government right now? I can't even believe this right now, and sadly, I've come to the realization that this is the best we can do, and I doubt it will improve anytime soon. I am beyond disappointed by what I'm seeing in this country with our policy making, and I had such high hopes for the Trump administration. I really did, and I doubt I'm alone on that opinion. We all want our government to succeed. We all want to improve our nation. We want to better our lives, better the quality of our lives. Unless, of course, you're an insane leftist or communist, illegal invader who champions the demise of our great country. But I think that's only common sense. Those of us that are sane want our government to work for us. They want to govern accordingly to the Constitution, the rule of law, and of course put American interests first, not a foreign nation's. That's exactly what we want. That's why we elected the Trump administration. Or at least I thought we did. It is absolutely disgraceful how poorly our government is currently handling our affairs, both foreign and domestic. No excuse for this whatsoever, by the way. The United States, the wealthiest nation on earth. The idea that we have all this money, though, for war and never for our own reconstruction is appalling to me. We were given the greatest constitution ever written by man with a vision where every man, woman, child can live in freedom, rule themselves. Our politicians represent us, we the people. They are responsible for that work. Not they, the lobbyists. Or not a foreign ally, or a handful of the big money donors. And this is what's got me so frustrated today, I think. Let's go back in time just for a little bit, just so we can set the tone for where I want to take us today. What did George Washington tell us in his farewell address in 1796? He said, "'Tis our true policy to steer clear of permanent alliances with any portion of the foreign world." In other words, he foresaw the threats from abroad, referenced by saying things such as interference by foreign powers in the nation's domestic affairs, meaning that the foreign governments could corrupt our republic. And Washington was absolutely correct. President Adams said to the U.S. Senate in 1797, "Foreign influence is one of the most baneful woes of a Republican government." Thomas Jefferson said in a letter to James Monroe, "I have ever deemed it fundamental for the United States never take active part in the quarrels of Europe." Meaning again, no foreign entanglements, ever. And by the way, we can go through all of our founding fathers. They all had the same mantra on this. They did not want to be involved in what was going outside of the country. It never leads to anything positive. And we keep making these same mistakes over and over again. Ben Franklin said that foreign influence is a disease. Madison, Patrick Henry, Alexander Hamilton, all warning against foreign powers controlling our republic because they saw what it could do and the tyranny that comes along with it. They lived this. These men lived this. They saw this. However, I want to bring everyone's attention, and I saw this thanks to Fox News, by the way. There was an Israel Day parade in the Big Orange, New York City. Not a Jewish American Day parade, but an Israel Day parade. I saw Kathy Hochul present. Letitia James was present. Schmucky Chucky Schumer was there, present, gave a speech. But what was really shocking to me was that the Israeli finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, was present during this parade. Now some of you are saying, well, so what, Jerez? Who cares? What's the big deal? Who cares? So what if he came here for the parade? Does it matter? Not so fast. Before you dismiss him, this is a politician in Netanyahu's Likud party that has made some not-so-statesman-like remarks about the Palestinians in Gaza, and the West Bank too, by the way. Some things he's said, just so we're all aware of this. There's no such thing as Palestinian people. Gaza will be completely destroyed. Civilians will be concentrated, and from there they will leave in large numbers to third countries. I think the village of Huwara needs to be erased. The state of Israel needs to do this. The Jews have been the most hospitable host. And that is why you, the Palestinians, are still here. For now. So he's blatantly referring to an ethnic cleansing, at the very least, of the region. And of course, displacing over 2 million Palestinians from Gaza. I've heard him say things, for example, that Gaza will be 100% Jewish. At one point, during the war with Gaza, which still goes on, by the way, he bragged about there being no food or water entering or humanitarian aid for at least 3 months. He was very happy about this. This guy's sick in the head. Encouraging and being happy about committing war crimes? I mean, we never seen anything so blatant like this, have we? We're just out in the open. You can see it and you can hear what they're saying about it. And here he is, marching down the streets, an American city. It's amazing to me. Really, it is. I mean, can you imagine, though, if, for example, if the Palestinians or the Lebanese or the Turks or the Saudis, the Jordanians, Egyptians were all making comments like this about the state of Israel today? We would 100% condemn it, eschew it, because this type of language and these types of actions are wrong. And it's wrong for any group of people to do this to any other group of people. And it's right to call that out. That's why I do this. None of this is okay, everyone. And for people just to stand by idle while this is happening in Gaza today, we know that at least 900 people have died since the so-called ceasefire at the end of last year. Where are the people calling this out in the mainstream news media? I want to know who is being honest and actually reporting about this. Someone let me know who that is, if you can find them. And by the way, today they're now talking about taking 70% of the land during a ceasefire. Let that sink in, by the way. There is no ceasefire. There never was a ceasefire, just like there's no ceasefire in Lebanon today. What was the purpose of this Israel Day parade? How was it sold to the people? Well, it was described as to serve as a large public demonstration to support the state of Israel and a celebration of Jewish identity, culture, and solidarity. It brings tens of thousands of marchers and spectators along Fifth Avenue in New York City every single year. Isn't that nice? Now, unless I'm mistaken, whatever I see on Fox News, and rightfully so, by the way, any of these demonstrators waving foreign nations' flags in one of these, say, anti-ICE protests, we get miffed, don't we? And rightfully so, those on the right. We proclaim this is America, as we are and should be one nation, one flag, one people, e pluribus unum, yeah, of many one. We seem to forget that. So why is this okay in the streets of America? By the way, I checked too, as an American of full Italian ancestry. When is the Italy Day parade in New York City? By the way, I couldn't find anything about it. There wasn't a damn thing about it. And apparently, if I want to partake in something like this, I've got to fly to Rome, Italy. And by the way, I didn't get much time. It's on June 2nd, is the Festa della Repubblica, their national day for Italy. Nothing in New York City proper, unfortunately, even though the population is roughly the same size, roughly. So I've got to scramble and get a ticket now to go to Italy because there's nothing in New York City where I can have this support for the nation of Italy and its people. And, let's just hope there's enough fuel to even get us there if we can find a plane. Now, I speak in jest about this, of course, but in saying this to you, there's nothing wrong with being proud of where your family's from or your ancestry. Nothing wrong with that at all. It's fine to acknowledge who you are, understand who you are, absolutely 100%. The problem I have with all this, though, is when I see things like this, when I see a sporting event in the United States, and it's Team USA is playing a foreign country, and that foreign country's flags are being waved by Americans in the stands, something is definitely not right with that. When I see an anti-ICE protest or a pro-illegal immigration invaders protest, usually turning into riots, by the way, waving foreign nations' flags, being in the crowds by the piece of crap rioters while accosting police, defacing city and government property, or blocking a freeway, I ask myself the simple question, where do their bona fides lie? Certainly not with the Americans. Certainly not with American interests or our future. How does a nation like that ever survive? They don't. And that's part of the problem. We have members of Congress that are foreign-born, that are making decisions that affect you and I, that have not relinquished their dual citizenship from where they have come from. Again, another major problem here. How can you have people that have an allegiance to more than one country writing legislation and voting on it, which affects American-born citizens? How does that happen? Does anyone believe Ilhan Omar, Mazie Hirono, Pramila Jayapal, Ted Lieu, just a couple of them, just to name, have America's best interest at heart? I don't think so. And it's not just the Democrats, by the way. We have the party of, the Democrats, or the party of the Tower of Babel, for example, right? The party of open borders, the party of handouts to illegal aliens, the party that hates our founding and, of course, our Constitution, all of our traditions, by the way, and, of course, a way of the free market, capitalism, the party that hates law and order. I don't know how you could stand any of these people in this party, personally. Maybe Ro Khanna and John Fetterman, maybe. And that's only on some issues. I mean, Republicans have their flaws too. Don't get me wrong, okay? We have Republicans that have flaws with how they present themselves, absolutely 100%. But the thing I want to say to you, how do you reconcile with someone with the likes of the ones I just mentioned, by the way, who any chance they get will spit on the Constitution, spit on the country, but how about the ones that do it surreptitiously? What am I talking about here? How do you reconcile with the likes of, let's say, a Ted Cruz, for example, that makes outlandish comments and statements like this on clip 1? Let's take a listen to that so we don't waste any time. Let's take a listen.
No, it's an American lobby. It's the AIPAC stands for the America-Israeli Political Action Committee.
What does it lobby for?
So, to be honest, not a whole lot effectively. Listen, I came into Congress 13 years ago with the stated intention of being the leading defender of Israel in the United States Senate.
Great.
And I've worked every day to do that. AIPAC, a lot of times, AIPAC I wish were much more effective. Like, there are folks online who are in the fever swamp of terrified of AIPAC, and AIPAC...
I'm not terrified of AIPAC at all. You're the one who seems a little uncomfortable when I'm asking.
No, not uncomfortable at all.
I'm just asking what AIPAC does. My understanding, having known a lot of people who work at AIPAC, is that it lobbies on behalf of the Israeli government.
Wrong.
Oh, okay.
It's objectively
when was the last time AIPAC took a position that deviated from Prime Minister Netanyahu?
All the time.
Name one.
Okay. Let me go back and give a little history. If you want to do a deep dive on AIPAC,
I don't. I want to do a shallow dive that gets...
No.
I want to get to the core question. AIPAC is lobbying for a foreign government. And it's not. It's lobbying for the United States.
It is lobbying for a strong U.S.-Israeli relationship.
So while he tries to double down on what he's trying to say here, which is, well, no, AIPAC has nothing to do with Israel. These are Americans. Well, who do they lobby for, Ted? And he just says anything. Well, they want a better relationship. How do they get that better relationship? What does a better relationship mean, by the way? Can't answer the question. And his number one goal was to come into the Senate and be the number one supporter for Israel? How about the number one supporter for the state of Texas in the United States? These guys spend more time talking about the state of Israel. And Cruz isn't the only one, by the way, in the Republican camp. We see this from the likes of, let's say, Lindsey Graham, for example, Brian Mast of Florida. This guy has been wearing an IDF uniform on Capitol Hill. I mean, people like this. And when you see these congressional leaders with Israeli flags in their offices, that should tell you something. How do you think Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, the other founding fathers I just mentioned to you, would respond if a senator from Texas said his number one goal, was to be the number one supporter of Great Britain and wants the two nations to have a really good relationship with one another? And that candidate takes money from Americans that ally, or in many cases are dual citizens of Great Britain. Probably wouldn't go over so well, don't you think? I don't think so either. 97 of 100 senators in our Congress today, that's Republicans and Democrats alike, take money in some form from AIPAC, a foreign lobby, which Ted Cruz just said wants to have a much better relationship with the United States, as if they don't already have a great relationship. This is the biggest PAC, the most prevalent PAC, despite what Ted Cruz says to you. And by the way, this isn't the only foreign lobby, however, but this is clearly the most persuasive and the most influential on both sides of the aisle, by the way, in getting exactly what it wants. Notice Thomas Massie is no longer in Congress because the AIPAC candidate had tens of millions of dollars thrown into his camp and has now kicked off Thomas Massie. Again, look no further than Miriam Adelson's money spent on the 2024 campaign, who's currently now pledging to spend some $40 million in this upcoming midterm election. You know, $250 million does a lot of talking, folks. And I'll just say a lot of people are in this government because of that influence. Did you know that Pulp Fiction Pete Hegseth, oh, good old Pete Hegseth, right after being confirmed by the U.S. Senate as defense secretary, called Netanyahu and pledged his devotion to the state of Israel? Did you know that? Well, that's why you listen to my show. And just to be clear, it's wrong when big money donors spend money to get what they want, favors to them. Again, which I think is causing our founding fathers to roll in their graves right now as I speak to you. When I think about this control of our government at the behest of foreign lobbies, foreign actors, and governments alike, I really thought of Teddy Roosevelt. You know, I thought of our founding fathers, but I thought of Teddy Roosevelt. Right after he signed the Immigration Act of 1907, which ramped up English language requirements, more rigid health and character status requirements of those coming to the country, and just simply reduced immigration figures overall just to protect American citizens and jobs first. Is that a crazy concept, folks? In other words, he wouldn't bring in more H-1B visa holders into the country. Wouldn't do something like that. Now, Roosevelt said very bluntly and succinctly, and I agree with every word he said, and that's why I'm going to read it to you right now. Right after signing this bill, he said, in the first place, we should insist if the immigrant who comes here in good faith becomes an American and assimilates himself to us, he shall be treated on an exact equality with everyone else. For it is an outrage to discriminate against any such man because of his creed or birthplace or origin. But this is predicated upon the person's becoming in every facet an American and nothing but an American. There can be no divided alliance here. Any man who says he is an American, but something else isn't an American at all. We have room but for one flag, the American flag. We have room for but one language here, and that is the English language. And we have room for but one sole loyalty, and that is a loyalty to the American people. Now, this, of course, was written in saner times, of course, and more lucid times before the mental derangement known as liberalism destroyed the minds of so many people. I would make one addendum to this list, and by the way, it's a great list of things that he mentions, of course. We have but one form of government, and that is based on the United States Constitution, which would get rid of a lot of the terrible policies that followed in the 20th century after his presidency. It's not a suggestion, nor used when we feel like it, and certainly not just a piece of paper, as George W. Bush once told us. But this is how we're governed. This is our language. This is our tradition. This is our founding document. If you don't like it, bon voyage to you. You don't belong here. And if your loyalties stand with another country, do you think you'd be running down the street with a foreign nation's flag in 1907 in this country? I think you'd be crazy to think so. But why did I open up today's show by talking about allegiances and lobbies and immigration? Because we, the people that love our country and want to fight and protect it from all enemies, both foreign and domestic, don't forget the and domestic part, are sick of going to wars with our taxpayer dollars for countries like Israel. And again, I can't say it to you any clearer than that, folks. This seems to be the mantra for our military for the last 25 years. Anyone that is objectionable or, just reasonable will tell you that completely. These wars are not fought for the United States. They're fought for Israel. We're sick of the economy not working for us, and of course, the worst jobs and inflation that steals our wealth and our prosperity and our future. We're sick of the lack of opportunities and the lack of good jobs going overseas. Again, all done by the government. And this is at the same time while the government brings in more people every single year. But I think most importantly, and I think we are all sick of being lied to by our government constantly, and our news media that runs cover for them. That's really the point of the media. The point of me being here every day talking to you isn't to run hit pieces and follow certain narratives being preached to us. The point is to be objective. The point of it is to be reasonable and logical and truthful with you. You know, Paul Kirk Roberts has an article on his site today that I saw earlier. And it expounds on this point about the media, or social media aspect now. Social media is a place where a lot of people tend to get their news now. And maybe not be the best place, but there is ways to show information in a quick format, right? So people can become more aware. And it wakes a lot of people up. So it's very important to understand that aspect of the propaganda where we find ourselves in today as well. Because it's easy to flash a meme, flash a short clip video, flash something from the news media, write a little bit about it, and influence people. And that's why it's very important to understand this. But he writes, responsible statecraft reported that Israel is now paying a cohort of 14 to 18 social media influencers an estimated $7,000 per posted article through a firm called Bridges Partners for defending Israel's war crimes and demonizing alleged, quote-unquote, anti-Semites for reporting them. The filing disclosed under the Foreign Agents Registration Act, known as FARA, indicated that Israel pays these influencers as part of a campaign called the Esther Project. Yep. So you have people, again, inside this nation that are pushing out this propaganda to people to influence them. How do you have a well-educated, well-informed populace when you have people knowingly lying to you? Again, there are influencers here in the United States with a massive social media following, thanks to the algorithms on these social media platforms that push this crap right in front of our faces, writing lies online to cover up Israel's actions in Gaza, the West Bank, and now Lebanon, to avoid any type of culpability or scrutiny of it. When you're told if you ask any questions, well, you're an anti-Semite. What a bunch of crap that is. Now, thankfully, it's crashing and burning and on them, and of course, winding up in the crap house. But we have Israeli politicians now calling for the ethnic cleansing or the removal by death of the Palestinians from the West Bank, from Gaza, and are marching in our city streets now on behalf of a foreign government. It just seems so backwards and wrong, doesn't it, folks? And by now, you know exactly why our founders would say about this. And of course, the likes of a Teddy Roosevelt. Not a Teddy Kennedy, though. The old carousing womanizer who would love to see this takedown of America if he was still alive today. I can assure you of that. But let's open the floodgates of today's show to start off June with an article from the New American that further demonstrates my disgust for what I'm seeing take place inside of our nation. And it has to do with a piece of legislation about the fiscal year 2027 National Defense Authorization Act. Deep within this 1,000 plus pages of it, hidden deep where nobody can find it, just for that simple purpose, right? They put these little provisions in there that kind of hide so you can't really see it. I mean, who's going to read 1,000 pages of paper? It's going to be very difficult for one person. But what's inside of it is a provision that interlocks the U.S. military with that of the Israeli military. Now, some of you are shaking your head going, come on, Gerace, there's no way that's possible. They wouldn't do that. No, not our government. They never would do such a thing. Would they? Or would they? Well, let's dive into it, shall we? And by the way, folks, you know me. I always come with receipts, don't I? I want you to listen to Robert Barnes. He's a brilliant lawyer. He's a commentator about the current state of our union, and in this case, the NDAA. And I want you to listen to clip 2 right now.
The U.S. military is subject to the authority of the Israeli military, The more neutered version of it is that it gives them access to, as if they're part of the U.S. military in terms of classified access, technological access. It allows for arms shipments to be made and military technology and national security technology to be shared without any special vote or particular action of the president.
This is crazy. This is insane, hearing this. The central provision in this Section 224, titled U.S.-Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative. And in it, the language is very direct. It says here that the section would require that the Secretary of Defense to designate an executive agent responsible for synchronizing cooperative efforts between the United States and Israel, including bilateral defense technology research, development, testing, evaluation, integration, and industrial cooperation. Selling of arms, ladies and gentlemen? I think so. So we got a bill now that's going to be put forth to Congress that directs the Pentagon to identify jointly developed or Israeli origin technologies with operational unity for possible integration into the United States systems and programs of record. I mean, this is amazing to me. This is beyond me. I don't even know what to say about this. How could anyone possibly be okay with this? And no one's talking about this. This is the other part of the problem. No one is saying a word about this today. I've heard not one human being in the news media talking about the seriousness of this. And again, the bill turns that pipeline into kind of an operational structure, directing coordination across major Pentagon components, including DARPA, for example, the Defense Innovative Unit, the Missile Defense Agency, the U.S. Space Command, the military departments, and the U.S. Israel Operations Technology Working Group. It also calls for joint training exercises, information sharing mechanisms to improve the readiness to deploy jointly developed technologies. This is a massive step. And by the way, we've had this in some capacity prior to this, but never have we seen language like this where we're openly talking about the communion between both the U.S. military and the Israeli military. We've never seen anything like this before. And again, there's various domains, of course, which follows in this. But this network integration, I mean, this is something else. I mean, we could look through all this. I mean, the counter unmanned systems, including aerial, maritime, ground platforms, the anti-tunneling and subterranean threats, the missile and air defense technologies, artificial intelligence, quantum, machine learning, autonomous systems. I mean, the list goes on here. Cyber defense, biotechnology, all these things. We are merging together with another country, folks. This should not stand. This will not stand. I don't know how we get around this. We could call our congressional leaders and ask them not to vote for this, but this is insane. I mean, this is something I've never seen anything like this before. So blatantly obvious, too, by the way. A foreign partner would not simply receive American equipment. Israeli origin or jointly developed technologies could move into U.S. programs. Israeli firms could gain a deeper role inside the U.S. defense industrial base. I mean, they would be sitting right across the table from them. Involved in these decision makings, you've got joint products could move into formal Pentagon acquisition. Manufacturing of what they want could occur right on U.S. soil. So you got once factories, supply chains, jobs, and of course Pentagon dependencies form, these relationships are never going to stop. And it starts looking like that could actually happen with all this. And this is the scary part about this, ladies and gentlemen. We got other sections too. 1221 would extend the War Reserve Stockpile Authority for Israel to January 1st, 2029. That stockpiles have allowed the United States to store weapons inside of Israel, our weapons. I'm sure they would never use them, right, folks? And in practice, it has also served as a wartime reserve Israel can access under certain conditions. See, there you go. So whenever Israel wants to go, like, say, into southern Lebanon again, they can just take our weapons and go right for it. No problem whatsoever. And by the way, the bill does not require a new public inventory. It does not create a more transparent accounting system. It simply keeps the authority alive from the Secretary of Defense for several more years. Section 1222 extends the U.S.-Israel subterranean cooperation through December 31st, 2029. The current authority already covers joint research, development, testing, evaluation of anti-tunnel capabilities. Yeah, they want to get rid of Hamas, don't they? The new text would expand the authority into the subterranean threats of all kind. Section 1223 then extends another joint program. It would continue the U.S. cooperation with Israel to counter unmanned systems through December 31st, 2029. And here again, the broadened scope of what Congress is talking about here, the provision covers unmanned systems in all warfighting domains. By the way, the budget, since you're all very concerned about how we're spending our money for a foreign nation, I'm sure you are, as am I. You know how much money we've spent since 1946 to 2024, just that time period with Israel? Roughly $298 billion of our money has gone to Israel in that time. And by the way, that doesn't even include the wars we fought for them in Iraq, among other places, the bombings we've done. Think Yemen, think Syria. I mean, it's just a mess. What's happening right now with Iran, none of that factors into that number, which the Congressional Research Service has figured out. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I want to play one more clip of Robert Burns. Again, he's very articulate and very knowledgeable on all this. And I want you to know what's going on right now. This is the main part about all this. I mean, we're looking at a 2025 cost of war report that found that the United States provided at least $21.7 billion in military aid to Israel from October 7th, 2023 to September 2025. So we're just dishing money out like it's nothing. This is unbelievable. Anyways, let's listen to Robert Barnes yet again.
So that gives you an idea of, that's why there have been people that have no bone to pick with Israel, who have repeatedly said not to do these kind of military deals at all, not to share this kind of technology with Israel or anybody, except under the very strictest of circumstances. And the problem with this deal is it takes it out of having to do deal by deal. And so, in fact, it legally authorizes Israel to effectively get away with it to a degree. Whereas if we sold the weapons to them and it came under certain conditions and then they subsequently shared it, we could directly take action. This is so loose and free going that you're going to have Israeli military personnel in the room when some of this is getting developed. It's very, I mean, we already have aspects of this. There's Mossad minders in large parts of in the State Department and the Pentagon and other places where they should not, the intelligence agencies where they should not be. Tucker Carlson has had people on that have publicly disclosed these facts and realities. Joe Kent has talked about these facts and realities that he was kind of shocked to see once he got into government and office.
And again, he's absolutely right about this. Before this war with Iran began, you had Netanyahu in the Situation Room, sitting at the head of the table, dictating the conversation. Why do we have a foreign leader in the Situation Room dictating what's going on at all? I mean, this again, I have nothing else I can really say to you about this other than the fact that we are letting a foreign nation come in. Robert Barnes was correct. This broad legislation, the broad wording, doesn't allow for any type of accountability, any type of oversight whatsoever. We've seen how that works inside the United States. Look no further than the fraud in state after state after state, which we've found rampant for so many years. You don't think anything would be different at the Pentagon that desperately wants these high-budget contracts, ladies and gentlemen? And by the way, what is the current budget they're considering right now? Looks to be $1.15 trillion. Yep. So when Dwight D. Eisenhower told us, beware of the military security industrial complex, he wasn't kidding. He wasn't kidding at all. And this is the scary part about this. You have a foreign government that will be making decisions with the United States with zero oversight attached to it. And this is very, very scary stuff, folks. If I were you, and you're listening to my show today, you need to reach out to your congressional leader. You need to tell them not to vote on this NDAA bill. We cannot have this. We cannot be hijacked by a foreign government at all. And this is the scary part about all this, folks, I have to say. And I want you to be aware of this. I want you to be aware of what's going on because this is the reality we live in now. We have politicians that are writing in legislation now that allow a foreign government to be intertwined with our military. And again, put any government you want in there. Put Great Britain in there. Put the UK in there. Put Italy. Put Spain. Put France. Anyone with a brain would find this outrageous to think that way. That this would be okay. And it's not okay, and we should be, again, very much aware of all of it. Let's move on to another very pressing topic, of course, the war going on right now. And we now know, thanks to The Hill, that Iran now has halted the ceasefire talks with the United States, saying it will keep the Strait of Hormuz closed. So we all, over the weekend, wanted everything to get better. We thought, hey, we might be close to an agreement, even though I told you, don't hold your breath on it. And thank God you didn't. But Iran now has accused the Trump administration of a ceasefire violation and will move to close the Strait of Hormuz and stop exchanging messages with the United States through the intermediaries, is what the Iran state-affiliated outlet Tasnim news agency reported on Monday. Not a shock. And by the way, Trump is not talking to anybody. Despite what you've heard him say today, and by the way, as of late, maybe about an hour ago, maybe 3 p.m. Eastern Standard, 12 p.m. Pacific, he was saying the talks are going well, we're talking directly to him, we're really close to a deal. How many times have we heard this? I mean, you just can't believe this anymore. You're talking, everything's close, great, yeah, whatever. Until I see something, I'm just not going to believe it anymore. No one in the Iranian government is speaking to President Trump or Steve Witkoff or Jared Kushner or J.D. Vance. They're not talking to them. So let's be very clear about what's taking place right now. Not only are there no talks, but here are the Iranian non-negotiables for them, for this new ceasefire. They want the U.S. naval blockade to leave their post outside of the Persian Gulf. So until Trump does that, they're not even going to speak to them about anything further, nuclear or otherwise. You got the U.S. military leaves the Gulf Arab nations, at least certainly in their size and scope, greatly being diminished. They want either $12 to $24 billion of their frozen assets to be returned to them. And this is the kicker of all, folks. Rachi just came out and said this on X today. Israel must end their war and illegal occupation in southern Lebanon. Has to happen. Now, Rachi took to X and said that Lebanon is included in the ceasefire with the United States, and any violation on that front shall be considered a violation of it across all fronts. So that means, again, if they decide to invade again or ramp up the war again, the deal's off. There is no ceasefire. There are no further negotiations to be had. And we know Netanyahu has never agreed to a ceasefire that he's actually held to. Never has. If he did, he wouldn't be in southern Lebanon right now. By the way, Israel announced on Sunday that it had captured Lebanon's Beaufort Castle. This is a 900-year-old fortress located north of the Litani River that carries a strategic military value and, of course, stands as a symbol of Israel's occupation of the south of the country between 1982 and 2000. So again, illegal occupation. Do you think Netanyahu's going to walk out of there and leave? Give up the fortress? No, he's not. Of course he isn't. Of course not. And by the way, you're hearing Ben Gvir come out right now saying similar things, similar rhetoric, saying it's time to say no to President Trump. Fine. You say no to us? Good luck getting any military aid from other countries then. I mean, there are ways to play this, folks, but Trump is not going to do that. And how do you get a deal when you have one party that is constantly doing everything they can to sabotage it? That would be the Israelis. If Trump cannot rein in Netanyahu to stop this illegal invasion, to stop the war, to stop the bombings in the suburbs of Beirut, how do you get a deal with Iran? And you don't. The war goes on, and that's exactly what Netanyahu wants. This is perfect for him. He gets what he wants in Lebanon. The war goes on between the United States and Iran. Perfect situation. Absolutely perfect situation. And by the way, this is out of NBC News. Netanyahu now vows to expand Israel's grip on Lebanon after the deepest incursion in 26 years. Yep. This is what they want. This is what he wants to have, and he is not going to stop, too, by the way. Him being in war allows him to survive politically, too, by the way. Let's just be aware of that. Again, I see no end to this. Everything that's coming out of Israel is saying the exact same thing. Netanyahu said, "My instruction is to deepen and expand our grip on the places that were under Hezbollah's control. The occupation of Beaufort is a dramatic stage and dramatic change in the policy that we are leading." Defense Minister Israel Katz said in a speech on Sunday that the Israeli flag was once again flying over the peaks overlooking the communities of Galilee. This is Greater Israel. They're telling you very, very clearly that Beaufort will remain there as a part of the security zone in Lebanon, in a country of which they have no right to be in, an illegal occupation. Katz adding to it on X, they're saying this to you, folks. They're saying clearly as mud, they're saying this to you. The campaign is not yet over, that Israel is determined to crush Hezbollah, which they're not going to do, by the way, which has historically operated in southern Lebanon, close to the border with northern Israel. Yeah, because, again, of your illegal occupation. When did Hezbollah form? In 1982, right after what? You took control of that land. So they are a resistance militia to your illegal occupation. So if there was no Israel in southern Lebanon, you wouldn't have Hezbollah today. So we have to be very clear about why these groups even formed. Why do you think Hamas formed? Why do you think Netanyahu helped fund them? I mean, this is why these groups formed. Again, illegal occupations in Gaza. Again, look at what's taking place in the West Bank. I mean, it all makes sense. This is why this is going on, and Trump does nothing to stop it too, folks, by the way. So, I don't think anything is going to happen as far as a ceasefire between the United States and Iran. Don't look for it. You're going to hear a lot of rhetoric coming out, especially as of late. We're talking to them. We're close to an agreement. They want an agreement. Thank you for your attention to the matter. Yeah, whatever. It's not going to happen. Simply is not going to happen. And by the way, out of Time magazine, it says, United States and Iran exchange renewed fire as Trump claims all will work out in the end. Well, maybe for him it'll all work on the end. I don't know. All I know is as time goes on, the economy will weaken and get much, much worse. Yep. We'll talk about that momentarily. It says here, the U.S. said that it carried out self-defense strikes against Iran over the weekend, while Tehran on Monday said that it had targeted an airbase used in the attack amid continued talks to end the war. U.S. CENTCOM relayed late Sunday evening that it had conducted self-defensive strikes on Iranian radar and command and control sites for drones in Garuk in southern Iran and Keshem Island. Yep, so we're still throwing bombs at each other. How do you have a ceasefire when you're doing all that? You're not. And again, folks, I tell you this. I tell you this because, again, it's simply just not going to end. Not anytime soon. So don't look for it. Don't expect it. Expect things to get worse because that's exactly what's going to happen. And on that note, as a ramification, as a consequence of this war that we find ourselves in, again for Israel, and again, I think over time, Israel is going to be seen as the number one provocateur that this war continues on. When you have President Trump coming out saying, well, we want peace, we want to make a deal, Israel's a part of this, and you have Israel defying those orders so blatantly, by the way, and so proud of it. You're going to have people inside both nations pointing the finger at Israel. That's the truth. And by the way, the self-defense nonsense is a bunch of garbage, too. Even from the United States in this aspect. Simply not true. So, again, don't look for it. Not going to happen because Netanyahu does not want it to happen. Anyways, moving on. Let's go on, shall we? This should be good for us to understand. Look at this. Just the news. Exxon, global agencies warn of oil price spike within weeks. Oh. So that means our gas prices are going to go up yet again. I find this amazing. How much more the American people are going to put up with this crap? How much higher do the gasoline prices have to be before you say to yourself, wait a minute, what's going on here? You've come time and time again saying, we're close to a deal, we want a deal, they're going to listen to me, they can't wait to sign a deal with me, and then nothing ends up happening and the war continues on. And as a result of all this, the diesel prices are going up. Anyone that goes out can see this. Those diesel prices are going to add to higher prices at the stores now. Higher grocery, higher retail prices, higher price for lumber, furniture, you name it, everything is going to start going up dramatically because now it's costing double the price to get that good to that particular store that you love to go to. Amazon drivers, what do you think? They run on electric vehicles? No, of course. They're going to run on gasoline as well. So everything is going to get much, much more expensive right here in the United States. And for what? You're not going to get a deal better than the JCPOA from Trump from this. The Iranians simply are not losing the war, so they're simply not going to bend over backwards to give Trump what he deems is better than the JCPOA. Just simply isn't going to happen, folks. Mark my words on it. Not going to be a better deal than the JCPOA. That being said, let's take a look at this. It says Neil Chapman, the senior vice president of ExxonMobil, told investors at the Bernstein 42nd Annual Strategic Decisions Conference in New York that the global inventories could reach critical lows within 2 to 3 weeks. What did I just tell you last week? I said one of the last ships has docked at Long Beach with the oil coming from the Persian Gulf. I said to you, the refineries have not hit their supply lows just yet. That's going to happen very soon. Especially when you have Trump selling, 17.8 million barrels of oil at a much lower rate just to keep the prices down right now. Once that dries up, once that goes away, you're going to see an increase in the price of oil per barrel and, of course, at the pump as well. So a top ExxonMobil executive warned that the oil prices could surge between $150 and $160 per barrel within weeks as the conflict in the Middle East drains global inventories, a spike that would likely send gas prices higher. Yep. What have I been telling you, folks? I told you this for weeks now. I'm one of the few people, by the way, not the only person, but one of the few people that said get ready for $120, $130, $150, maybe even $200 per barrel oil. We haven't seen oil drop like this in some time. We haven't seen supply chain issues like this with oil for quite some time. Most people have never seen this in this country. It's going to get bad and very, very quickly. And what do you think happens to that price per price per gallon when you have $150, $160 per barrel? It's going to be rough. It's going to be very rough. And everything will fall in line as a result of this. So don't say I didn't warn you. All these schmucks out there who are telling you short-term pain for long-term gain, yeah. They're schmucks for a reason. Don't forget I told you that. And I told them you are full of it, because this war is not going to end in the 2 to 3 days. You know, you're not going to be paying $450 for just a little bit of while. You're going to be paying for quite some. It's going to get higher. It's going to get much, much higher. And anyone telling you, by the way, suck it up, don't worry about it, tell them to go pound sand for me, okay? These people don't matter. They're not serious people. You're suffering as a result of what? Seriously, what are you suffering for when you could have had a deal last June? Again, that was stymied by the Israelis. Again, we were supposed to be having talks the following Monday, March 2nd, I believe. Over that weekend, Israel decided to bomb. As Marco Rubio told us, we had to go in. We had to start bombing too. Yep, there we go. So who wants the war? It's Israel that wanted the war. Who's fighting the war for Israel? We are. And who's struggling at home? We are. Now, of course, if you're a multimillionaire, you don't really care so much, do you? No. Higher gas price doesn't even faze you. Yeah, you might be a little miffed about it, but it doesn't really faze you. It's people making, under $200,000 a year, maybe, running a family. Yeah, that'll rack up pretty quickly, folks, won't it? I think so. And folks, I wish I had better news for you on this front, but again, we're going to see increases in the overall price. We're seeing diesel prices averaged $5.52 nationally. This is going to get much higher, and you're going to see prices. You're certainly going to see inflation, consumer price indexes, producer prices all start to rise. And by the way, what do you think is going to happen to our crop farmers? What do you think their tractors run on, if they can even get the fertilizer for it? Rough times ahead, folks. Rough times ahead. Anyways, let's move on. Let's move on to something else. Let's get our minds off this. Let's move on to an article I got out of Futurism. This is an interesting one. It says here, random standard Wi-Fi routers can scan your body to identify exactly who you are. So don't worry about, driving any place, folks. You can stay at home and be surveilled 24/7. That's the beauty of where we are today. So new research has come out of Germany's Karlsruhe, I believe that's how you say it, Institute of Technology, found that the types of Wi-Fi routers now have in our homes come with a major privacy vulnerability that can be used to identify any human that comes within their range. And they have about an accuracy of about 99.5%. So they know exactly who you are, where you are, what you're doing. Doesn't matter if you change how you walk, your gait, anything like that. They can figure out exactly who you are. And then, by the way, this study flagged by Gizmodo used machine learning systems to identify individuals with an accuracy, as I said, about 99.5%. And in order to do so, the researchers exploited a vulnerability in a process known as beamforming feedback information, which was introduced to allow routers to focus Wi-Fi signals on connected devices, as opposed to the older approach, which was kind of just to blanket the area with the Wi-Fi signal. So as a result of this, the device you have on your cell phone, your iPad, your computer, whatever it may be, is great for the network connectivity, sure, of course. But the major downside is for your privacy. So for starters, these devices, they connect to a router using the beamforming need to send the constant feedback in order to be found. As routers send out and receive network feedback, the signal is inevitably impacted by real-world factors like pets, walls, people, you name it. That gap, though, between the signal routers is expected to receive and the distorted feedback they actually get allowed the researchers to extrapolate the identities of 161 individual participants based on this BFI data, which inadvertently mapped their physical characteristics. So the Wi-Fi tracks who you are. Even when individuals changed how they walked, carried objects like backpacks or crates or what have you, the system still registered an accuracy between 50 and 60%. And so when I tell you we're living in a police state, folks, I don't make this stuff up to you. And by the way, you should be turning your Wi-Fi off at night anyways. No need to have it on. It affects the sleep. It's certainly not good for you. But this is very troubling, don't you think? This is troubling when you have Wi-Fi now in your home, which you think is, fast, affordable, necessary, accommodating to you. And what's taking place is they're tracking you, not only on the cameras on your phone, not only with the microphone on your phone, but now they can actually track your movement and exactly where you are. So, 1984, folks, that's where we stand right now. It says here, while more research will be needed, the researchers don't mince words about the implications about their initial findings. And in their conclusions, the team writes that the regulators and companies moving to standardize Wi-Fi sensing should strongly consider the effective privacy protection or else abandon beamforming entirely. The tech bros don't want that, though. They want this system in place. This is how they track you. This is how they know exactly who you are. And it's called a police state for a reason, folks, isn't it? I think so. One thing I'm really upset about, too, by the way, and I don't like this at all. I want to share this article with you. This is out of Public Health Policy Journal. And let's move on to this very, very important topic today. A key U.S. Department of Justice official has now recommended that the U.S. Supreme Court deny an appeal by former New York healthcare workers who lost their jobs after the COVID-19 vaccine religious exemptions were denied to them. This should make you sick to your stomach, folks. Absolutely sick to your stomach. Solicitor General D. John Sauer wrote in an amicus brief on Monday of last week that plaintiff's appeal doesn't cite any conflicting federal appeals court opinions that would have to be resolved, and that the fired workers didn't prove that he sought any accommodations other than full religious exemptions. Now, I'm going to stop here for you because I did this when I was working. I was teaching at the time, and I was allowed to file a religious exemption for this COVID shot. I didn't want to take the shot, and I certainly don't want to lose my job. So I said to myself, well, I'm going to do this, and if they don't accept it, I guess I'm done because this is my red line. This is my line in the sand. I'm not taking this COVID shot. I had done extensive research on it. The lack of safety testing and everything I was hearing from medical professionals who actually were telling you the truth, that actually researched what this mRNA technology did, was something I didn't want. I didn't want my body to become a host to create spike proteins. Just didn't want to do it. Didn't want to compromise my DNA. Not going to do it. My job's not worth it. And by the way, the funny thing about that, I worked with great people, by the way, too. Many people went ahead and did this. And again, you can make your own decision. Maybe people don't give a damn. They say, okay, I'll get the shot if you tell me to get the shot so I can keep my job. Fine. By the way, I know many people that did that. A lot of people told me, hey, Marco, look, I got a wife and kids. I got to do this. I got to have a job. People were put in a lot of tense positions at this time. You were told either get the shot or goodbye to your job, goodbye to your pension, goodbye to your, 401ks, goodbye to your living standard. And by the way, you're at a time of COVID where people are losing their jobs, people are getting laid off and furloughed left and right. People were scared of the so-called scary, COVID-19 virus. But it's really something when you have someone in the Trump Department of Justice, supposed to be Maha right now, telling you, no, you will take whatever we tell you to take. Something is wrong here, folks. Is it not wrong? By the way, let me just be the first to tell you. We have a Fourth Amendment right in this country. The right, and I'll read it directly to you, as it is quoted in the Constitution, which I tell you we need to follow. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects. Yep. The same right that tells you, the right against unreasonable searches and seizures. You have a right to be secure in your persons. Therefore, how can the government come in and tell you, you must take this shot? You don't want the shot, but you must take this in order to work. How does that work for anybody? How does that sound right to anybody? Do they accept medical exemptions, but they won't accept a religious exemption? You have a right to know and to understand, that people have a religious exemption to something like this, where you're putting something in your body, foreign material, that can affect the way your body works and how your mRNA coding is written and edited. That's what this was, by the way. It doesn't stop you from getting the virus or transmitting the virus or giving the virus. I mean, it's just unbelievable. But this is so problematic, folks. I mean, to me, Maha is dead at this point. I mean, we couldn't even get him on glyphosate, for God's sakes, which we know causes cancer. We've made some gains with the childhood vaccine recommendations, I guess we would say. We still need to get some proper testing on these shots kids are getting. And I hope RFK Jr. and Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, by the way, two people that were against this shot, by the way. I think they're being, their hands are being tied here on this, to be honest with you. But this is no good. It says here, the petition does not present a conflict among the courts of appeals that warrants this court's review, Sauer wrote. Nor is there any conflict regarding the broader Title VII principles, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits workplace discrimination. Of course it does. You will either get this shot or you will lose your job. That is discrimination. You don't have control over your body. We do. Now, I don't understand this. We have Kim Rosenberg, the general counsel for the Children's Health Defense, saying that the general's brief incorrectly analyzed critical points here that may have an impact on thousands of healthcare workers improperly and illegally denied accommodations during COVID. This is concerning because this court historically gives weight to the Solicitor General. So I don't know how we wouldn't have the court hear this, that you have the right because your religious conviction is being denied. Healthcare workers, should not be denied this to keep their job. And by the way, whatever happened to my body, my choice? Does anyone know anything about that anymore? Did anyone in that crowd ever come forth and say, listen, you shouldn't force people to put something in their body of which, they don't want to have in their body? I mean, this is the problem with everything here, ladies and gentlemen. And by the way, let me just be the first to tell you, I was one of the people that was completely against this from the moment this took place. 100% against this. When this was happening, I was shouting that people should not be forced to get this. This should not be happening. And as a result of this, again, I know a lot of people took this and they didn't want this. All right, folks, that's all we have for you today. Thank you for being here as always on the show. Make sure you're staying prepped as always with food, medicine, water, fuel, money, tools, anything to be self-sufficient in these times of uncertainty. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you back here tomorrow again, as always, for more groundbreaking news on the next Marco Dure Show. Until then, be good, stay busy. God bless.